Hey guys, it's Brooke with SupertutorTV, and what I'm going to do today, if you happen to have watched our video that we put out that was 5 activities that don't help your college application, that video generated quite a bit of criticism and dialogue, and so what I wanted to do is respond to some of that criticism in this video to clarify some of the points that I was making and to add a little bit of gray area in what may have come across as a sort of a black and white video, just to give you guys a little bit more insight. I realized that I was trying to pack a lot of information in a very short video because that's the kind of format that we have here. So it's sometimes hard for me to elaborate on things. But I also recognize that some people may have misinterpreted some of the things that I said, and I wanted to clarify what my intentions were and sort of what my perspective is and where I'm coming from. Before we get started, I want to encourage all of you to subscribe to our channel. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button below this video. And also I want to encourage you to sign up for our mailing list at SupertutorTV.com. I promise we won't send you a ton of mail. You can sign up to hear the latest and greatest of all that SupertutorTV is up to, including any new prep products, any giveaways, and hear about new videos and things that we have in the pipeline. Let's get started. The first thing that I want to say is many people have commented that this whole admissions process is not black and white and to take things with a grain of salt. And what I want to say is absolutely 100% activities and college admissions, it is really not a black and white process. It is much more of a gray area, and every individual student is taken one human being at a time, and they're looked at in context, they're looked at not only grades, test scores, activities. It's not super straightforward. There are so many aspects and elements that go into your acceptance. You're also being compared to the random other people who happen to have applied and how you situate yourself among that pool. So there's a lot of different factors that go into this. And what I'm trying to give you is general trends and general advice that I have based on my experience. So one of the critiques that I got was basically asking me, who the heck am I and why do I have any authority to speak on this issue? And so I just wanted to share a little bit of that. Again, I'm a professional tutor and a college admissions consultant. I do this for a living. I've been doing it for about 15 years now. Every year I help somewhere between right now about 20 to 30 students with their college application process and their essay writing process. And I give feedback of varying degrees to them about what they're writing about how to shape their stories, and just basically try to help them through this process to maximize their ability to get into college given what they have to work with. So, and through that process, I've seen many students with a lot of different kind of portfolios trying to get into college. And my general read on the situation, given students and what they have activities-wise, that's where this video kind of came from. It's just from my personal experience. The other thing that I want to say is that as a tutor, I specialize probably the most in trying to help kids get into top 10 or top 20 schools. So if you go to US News and World Report or you go to Forbes and you look up the top 10, the top 20 schools, that's what the majority of my clients and my students want to get into. And so a lot of my advice is tailored to that set of very competitive people. And I realize that some of my advice may not be true if you're applying to a state school that's ranked 70th or ranked 150th, or maybe that's not even ranked. For those kind of schools, yeah, like a lot of these activities I'm talking about totally count and they're fine. And they're more than what a lot of the applicants are going to have because they're just not as competitive programs. So that's not necessarily what I'm talking about the most. I'm talking more about very competitive schools. So that is another thing to take with a grain of salt. And some of my points are more broad and I think apply to probably a lot more schools, and some are much more specific to sort of those very competitive programs, okay? And for those very competitive programs, what I'll say is most of them want you to be the best at something. They want you to have one activity that just knocks it out of the park or that distinguishes you in some way. And that can either be in a leadership way, maybe you're student council president, or that can be in an excellence way. Maybe you're the best cellist in Vermont. But whatever it is, you are establishing yourself as, I have made a difference in a big way and I've made myself stand out among my peers. And so that's part of the message that's imbued in what I'm talking about. The other point of clarification that I want to make is that essays really matter a lot, and that's the process that I'm really a big part of with many of my students that I'm helping in their college admissions process. And because the essays are so important, a lot of times the issue that we have when we're trying to rate these essays is that we need to find good stories in these students' lives. And a lot of times where we pull those stories from are from their experiences in activities. And when I'm talking about activities, one of the things that I'm trying to gear you up for is doing activities that will in turn give you good fodder for your essays. And so if I'm making recommendations, a lot of times those recommendations are based on my experience reading really crappy essays written about certain types of activities. And the number one type of activity that I see really shoddy essays come out of is volunteer work. And it's that particular type of volunteer work. I don't know if you watch the video, I'm really talking about a specific type of volunteer work, which is this sort of low commitment volunteer work. It's the kind of volunteer work that like everybody's doing. And it also is the kind that you're not super engaged in or necessarily passionate about, or that's not giving you perspective on life. And I'm not trying to tell you not to do volunteer work. I'm just trying to tell you that don't expect volunteer work is going to get you into college, because so many people have it. One, and two, the level of commitment for 90% of the people I see doing volunteer work is a very low commitment level, and the level of engagement in those activities tends to be very low. There are totally exceptions to this rule. And I know some of you have been posting in the comments section like, I do this, right? I'm reading to kids 7 times a week for 5 hours after school, or I'm doing this volunteer activity with this count, with this count. I'm really passionate about this, so does it count if this is my passion? And my general statement is, if you think it's going to make for an interesting, passionate essay, and if you think that you have perspective on your world and a vision for the future, given the kind of work that you're doing, and you can write about that in an essay, then heck yes, that volunteer work could be valuable. In fact, I am a living, breathing example of an exception to this rule, because one of the short essays that I wrote for my Stanford application, if you've watched my How I Got Into Stanford, which you might know, was actually about volunteer work. I was volunteering in a juvenile prison, and I wrote about that experience. And if you want to hear me talk more about that experience, go see my How I Got Into Stanford video, and I can tell you that story. And that had a profound effect on the way I saw the world. And it was sort of this little moment of recognition and realization. And it was a little epiphany moment for me. And I think I got something valuable out of it. That being said, volunteering in a juvenile prison is kind of intense, and it's not your typical everyday volunteer work. And being a naive girl from the suburbs, it was like a serious kind of wake-up call for me. So you can see how the ingredients there make for something kind of interesting. Your essays are going to matter more than anything else, and I'm trying to guide you to get good fodder for those essays. So what you have to ask yourself is, am I gaining perspective on life and my world from this activity? That's basically your bottom line, regardless of what I said in my list, okay? That's your bottom line, so go off that, okay? The next thing I want to talk about is the idea that time commitment really matters, and that's what I was trying to get at in my second point that I made in the video. I think the MET activities, that's the other thing that people really responded to and got really offended about. I want to unpack that a little bit, because there's several points that I was making, and they're motivated for several reasons. And I'm not saying that activities like Pep Club or National Honor Society or your 1 hour a week international club or whatever it is that you're doing, that they don't count at all. But my point on those activities, on those like low commitment activities, is that you are going to perform a lot better in the admissions game if you have at least one activity that you've seriously dedicated yourself to. It doesn't have to be every activity you do. It's like, think of it as like side dishes with your lunch or sprinkles on your cupcake. Those are like sprinkles. It's not that they're not good. I mean, sprinkles are totally cool. But if you don't have a cupcake and you just serve up a serving of sprinkles to a college, they're going to shrug their shoulders and pick somebody with a cupcake. Does that make sense? And the cupcake is like your activities that you can really bite into, that you're spending a lot of time on, okay? So now let's talk about the second half of that second point. And my second half was that idea of if you're not a competitor and you're in a competitive activity, that it's not going to count that much for colleges. That's really advice for top 5 or top 10 programs above all. If you're getting down the list of colleges and you're even at a top 20 school or a top 40 school or something like that, those activities are going to start to count more. But when it comes to your Princeton and your Harvard and your Penn, those schools want to see you really excelling at something. The other caveat that I'm going to add in is, just because you're doing an activity and you don't totally excel in that activity doesn't mean that it doesn't count for anything or you should never do it, but rather that you need at least one activity. It might not be that activity, but you need at least one activity in your spread of activities that you do excel in or that you are a leader in. And that really is the linchpin that's going to get you in more than these little activities. And that's my point. My point is not don't put them down. My point is not that they don't count at all for anything, anywhere. My point is that I'm trying to push you guys to get those kind of linchpin activities that really are going to push you over the edge, that are going to make you a standout candidate in the pile, rather than just one of many. How do you get to be that standout candidate? That's what I'm trying to help you be, okay? I'm giving you general trends. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't follow your heart and do what you think is right for you. You should. And that's another theme that was all over my videos. Don't do what somebody else tells you to do what you want to do. And if you're doing what you want to do, you're going to end up in a better place. So there you go. I hope that this was helpful for you guys and that it helped clarify some of the gray area in what I was talking about and sort of where I'm coming from and what my perspective is and what's motivating what I'm saying. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. We appreciate that. And I've got a ton of other videos you should go check out on our website. We've got a free ACT mini prep course. If you're taking the ACT, go check that out. We've got plenty of ACT and SAT prep videos, both here on YouTube, and we've got an ACT prep products actually at our website as well that you can go check out at SupertutorTV.com. I will see you guys next time on SupertutorTV, and thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.